But God has given the gift of grace and mercy and love unto Bruno, and Bruno's going to share some of that with us tonight. So, Bruno, if you'd come on forward and.
I'm going to sit down. Is that okay, guys?
Yeah.
Because I plan on being up here for, I was told I only got 25 minutes, so we'll try to do this in 25 minutes. So, my name's Bruno. I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic and addict. I used to lose self-control a lot, and I'm just gonna, I could spend the entire 25 minutes on my childhood because it was very traumatic, but I'm just gonna leave it at my childhood was messed up. Okay, I suffered every kind of abuse you can imagine. So, when I turned, let me figure. Okay, when I was a kid, my dad pushed baseball on me. I was a very, very good baseball player. But nothing that I did was ever good enough for him. I never understood that, how somebody could push a kid so hard to be the best, and when he just fall a little bit short, make him feel so little, But that's exactly what happened. So, when I joined a Little League team at the age of 14, and I was being looked at by Toronto Blue Jays scouts, Detroit Tigers scouts. See, my dad, he was a AAA ball player for the Cleveland Mud Hens, and that's Detroit Tigers farm league. As well as being a very good baseball player. He played in the Latin American League when he grew up and stuff like that. So I was always held to a standard when it came to baseball. And so I played the entire year in a 16-year-old league that I was number one draft for at the age of 14. And for every single team, guys, every single team wanted Bruno to be on their team. I could do it all. I could catch, I could pitch, I could hit, I could run. I was very, very good. And so I was making plans at the age of 14 to become a professional baseball player because I felt like, God gave me the gift of size. And I believe that it was so that I would no longer feel the things that happened when I was a kid. Because I was able, with my size, to stop my abuser. So I told him I wasn't going to take that no more. And if he continued, that it would be me or him, And so with my size and the fact that I had a very, very crazy dad, I threatened him with my father too. But when I got old, as I got bigger, I became better at baseball. And like I said, I could do it all. So, I came home after the championship of that year with a second place trophy. I walked through trophy first. The trophy was this high. I wasn't much bigger than it, And I remember seeing my dad take the trophy, and he looked at the bottom, and it said second place, and he threw the trophy. So, needless to say, I no longer wanted his approval for baseball, and I flunked out. Now, a lot of people, and I didn't understand this. I do now that through drug and alcohol addiction, but I went into a heavy addiction into food. So I got very fat, very undesirable to myself to look in the mirror. And I said, at the age of 17, my dad was a bad alcoholic. And he used to want to beat, he would want to beat somebody, and I would just offer myself to him so he wouldn't beat my stepmother or my sisters. And, I'd act tough, but talking about a two-time veteran of Vietnam, And he would let me act tough, and then he would beat me up like I was a grown man, And so when I was 17, I had a recruiter come to me in high school. Now, mind you, everything suffered. Everything. I was a very, very smart kid until these things started happening. And next thing you know, I'm like one of the lowest at my high school. I think I had like 2 credits, and I was a senior. And so I had a recruiter come up to me, and he said, "Would you like to join the Army?" And I remember saying to him, "Anything that'll get me away from my dad." And he was like, "Well, we're taking non-grads, and I can get you in on a delayed entry program." I was 252 pounds. I was 5'8", okay? But I said, yes, absolutely. My parents, they did. I make excuses, but at the same time, everything happens in God's world for a reason. Nothing is a mistake. And I learned that now that I'm 53 years old and still dealing with the things that happened to me when I was younger. Way younger, by the way. So long story short, I joined the military. I went away to Alaska. Well, when I got to Johnson Hall at Fort Benning, Georgia, I couldn't do one push-up. That's how out of shape I was. But they put me in this group called the FTU, which is Physical Training Unit, or it's actually PFTU, or Fat, Tired, and Useless, depending on how you wanted to see yourself, I guess, at that time. So I went and I went through this program, and I was there for about 8 weeks until they started threatening to send me home. So every night while people were sleeping, I was running with my drill sergeants. And they took a liking to me, but they could only go so far with me. If I didn't improve on a weekly basis, the colonel of the base was going to send me home. I refused, man. I did not want to go home to my dad. A failure in the one thing that I thought maybe I could meet his approval. So long stories. Well, you know what? I've been told not to say that. So anyways, in the Army, I went and I passed my push-up test. I was able to do 23 push-ups after 13 weeks. So for 5 weeks, every week I would have to go in front of the colonel, and I had to show improvement. And I would get like 3 more push-ups each week until finally I was at 23 push-ups the day that I was told that I could go on to basic training. Well, when I originally went in, I wanted to be an airborne trooper because I wanted to be better than my dad. There's leg infantry, and then there's airborne infantry. Well, that was taken away from me because I was so far out of shape that when I went in to sign my contract, there was I remember seeing it, 1 Hawaii, 1 Germany, and like a stack like that tall of Alaska. Well, I said, I'm not going to Alaska. And I was probably 5th in line to pick my certificate, because a bunch of my brothers that were also overweight, we helped each other. We kept because we were all in one barracks, and we'd see, we were just so positive with each other, and they were like, but there's still some of them are brothers to this day. And I remember saying, I'm not going to Alaska. I guess I did all this for nothing. So when I walked out, my first sergeant was walking towards me, and he's like, you getting ready to go get those 6th Infantry Division patches sewn on? I'm like, I'm not going to Alaska. He was like, is that what you think? And I was like, yeah, I don't have to go to Alaska. He's like, man, I put 13 weeks into you. Go and get your 6th Infantry Division patches before I court-martial you. And I was like, how are you going to court? I'm still a smart kid, but wait a minute, you can't court-martial me. Oh, yeah, they could have. So anyways, long story short, because it was disobeying a direct order. So I got my 6th Infantry patches on, and I went to Alaska. So for the first year, I remember thinking that, I would talk to my dad, and he would act so proud of me, And I remember thinking in the back of my head, BS. I'm like, what are you, drunk? You know, like, you're not proud of me. You're the reason I left. And so my second year in Alaska, I got my expert infantryman's badge, which if you know anything about the infantry, it's the most prestigious badge you can get short of, say, a Congressional Medal of Honor or a Purple Heart, meaning that you were wounded in action, or I think there's a couple other ones too. But the EIB is very, very prestigious, and it's a very, very hard badge to get. I did 102 push-ups in 2 minutes. I did 92 sit-ups in 2 minutes, and I ran 2 miles in 12 minutes and 4 seconds. So needless to say, I was in very, very good shape, and a lot of it was so that I could come home and look strong and look, I didn't realize that the entire time that I was doing these things, I wasn't doing them for myself. I was only doing them so that I could see his face, and man, that's my son. He's an expert infantryman. I was like, so when I got my EIB, I got 90 days. Yeah, I got 90 days leave as a reward for getting my EIB, and I went home. And I remember I was wearing my dress greens on the plane. I got my blue infantry cord, I got my dress screens, and I got my EIB, and I couldn't make it no bigger. You know what I mean? When I looked at the EIBs, there's only one size, but I tried to find the biggest one that was there. But there was only one size, that's the truth. But that's like, so I walked through chest first, through the door. My dad was drunk, and I was like, hey, Pops. And I didn't say anything. Took about 5 minutes before I finally said, I got my EIB. He looked at me and he goes, talk to me when you get your CIB. And I said, that was the very first time I punched my dad. I couldn't take that no more. And I felt that I had proved myself to be enough of a man that I deserved and demanded his respect. So I go back up to Alaska, and I don't know if it was that encounter, but I start getting in a lot of fights, a lot of trouble, a lot of and I would pop off. I couldn't maintain a relationship. I never seen a real relationship. I never seen a healthy relationship, so I didn't know anything about it. I knew that the two prettiest girls in Fairbanks, Alaska, both liked me, and I tried to marry them both. And but I couldn't do it. I became a professional drinker when I got up to Alaska. That was where I started my alcoholic career. I mean, and if you're in Alaska, you're young and good looking. You go to the bar a lot, and there's not really much to do when you're back in garrison. So I was known as an excellent field soldier, one of the best in my division. I became an all-Army M60 machine gun team member, and I was put on special duty for 9 months. All I did every day was went to the range to shoot my M60. And when Operation Desert Storm kicked off, our funding was cut. I went back on regular duty. So, there was an early out program, and I had been in so much trouble. I mean, I must have got, reprimanded at least 20 times in 2 years, and I caught 3 Article 15s. I was an E1, busted from E3 down to E1, and they were offering an early out program, which was 32,000 troops were being cut. They asked me, they said, DeLeon, you want to go home? And I was, and like my first sergeant was telling me, he's like, you're not doing that good, man. He's like, you do good for a while, we give you a promotion, and then next thing you know, you're fighting with natives downtown. He's like, we can't have that, Well, like I said, I went into the Army with a chip on my shoulder, and that chip has cost me, even when I came home, I got in trouble. I wanted to. I didn't want anybody to know that I was an extremely scared, weak little boy in this big 240-pound frame of a body. So I became a drug dealer. And I found out about marijuana, so I'm very good at math. So I was like, well, you know what? I can make money off of this. So I went to my mother and I said, Mom, I need to borrow $600. She said, for what? And I told her. I didn't really realize I was breaking the law. It was weed, So she lent it to me and I became a drug dealer. So I caught my first felony when I was like 23. I'd just been home for I went to California originally. That's when I started smoking weed. And then I came home. My dad said, I want you to come home. I need you at home. So I came home. I became a drug dealer, and I got in so many fights, guys. I mean, I was just whooping people left and right. I gained a really, really, depending on how you looked at it, nobody wanted to mess with me, but I gained a bad reputation, especially with the law. And I remember going to jail my first time. And this is when my life completely changed. I was told to share about how God's changed my life. So here I am now at my God door, I'll call it. So I was in jail, and I was doing a year, and I had already violated probation so many times that the judge said, we're going to give you some clean time. So he gave me a year, and I got into a fight right when I got there because that's how you're supposed to do in jail, right? You're supposed to go in there and show people you're not a punk, So I got in a fight right when I got there, and I got locked down. And I got locked down for 7 days, and I was unruly. I remember my little hearing that I got to determine if I was going to get locked down. I remember, telling the lieutenant, I didn't say nice things to the lieutenant, and I got locked down. And it's crazy how God worked in my life because I needed to be locked down. I needed a time of reflection. So I was locked down. I couldn't go out onto the cell block. And I think I was maybe 3 days into my lockdown, and all of a sudden the door opened, and this little guy, he was probably 5 foot, maybe 110 pounds wet, wearing boots. And he comes in, and, I introduced myself, blah, 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 whatever. And the next morning, they cracked the doors. I'm not allowed to go out, but they cracked the door to let him out. And he was like, you're not going out? And I was like, I'm locked down. I go, they didn't tell you I'm locked down? He goes, no. And I go, yeah, I'm locked down. He's like, well, I don't need to go out there. And he closed the door. And so he's sitting there, and he's talking to me, and I get this feeling about this guy that, he's different. He's different. I don't know what's different about him, but he's different. And, the enemy was like, he's gay. He's gay, Bruno. And I was just happy to be talking to somebody. I'd already been in the cell for 3 days by myself. It's probably the longest time I've ever spent alone. And he was my bunkie, and I was up on the top bunk. I gave him the bottom bunk. I don't even know why. I think I just never changed from my prior bunkie. And he was laying on the bunk, probably on, I want to say day 4 or day 5. He was laying on the bunk, and we just got locked down for the night. And he didn't go out. How weird was this guy? Maybe he is gay, why is he staying in the cell with me? I never understood that God sends angels to people even in jail. So he's reading, and he's reading out loud, and I started getting real irritated. I didn't want to hear anything that he had to say if he wasn't talking directly to me. It kind of felt weird, whoa, why is he talking out loud? So he's reading, and I can't hear anything he's saying. All I know is that he's reading out loud. So he starts telling me about God. And I'm like, man, God ain't never done nothing for me. You know, I don't want to hear about him. Okay. So the next morning, we get our chow, and we finish eating, and he's like, somebody said something to him. He's like, praise God. And I was like, where's that word again? So that night, I'm pretty sure I was on day 6. I was getting ready to get out the next day. And he was reading out loud again. And this time I could hear him plain as day. I could hear everything he was saying. And I think he was reading, I want to say Psalms 119, because he said something about it. And I was like, bro, what are you reading? He's like, here, and he hands me a small Bible. I see the Bible, and I throw it across the cell. I don't want nothing to do with the Bible. He showed me that God was real in his life, okay? He jumped up, and he put the fear of God into me. Told me that I will never throw that book in front of him. He doesn't care how big I am. He will go toe-to-toe with me anytime I want to challenge his God, blah, blah. I was like, whoa. Calm down. And just then, my wall was broken down, and I started letting him talk to me about it. We stayed up all night. I cried. You know, he told me scriptures about my life and this and that, and I remember I was just like, okay, you got my attention. It was actually day 5 that this happened, because I had one more day left. Day 6, I hear the speaker, Feleon, you want to go to Bible study? He jumped up like he was going to church on the street. I mean, like, he was like, come on, man, come on. And I was like, oh, man, you know, I was like, I just had Bible study. They're like, do you want to go to Bible study or not? So I got out there, and I went to Bible study. And when I got there, the pastor was talking directly to me. He was telling me I was good enough. He was telling me I was strong enough, that this doesn't have to be my life, and he can give me a different life, that God could give me a different life. He asked me if I wanted, he told everybody in there that if you want to receive Jesus, to close your eyes and repeat after him. So I did. That minute, my life changed. I went back to my cell, and I had the weirdest transformation. The guards seen it. Other people seen it. My language changed from, man, I don't care, to praise God. And but I believe that God gives his most fierce battles to his strongest soldiers. Okay? And whether my dad recognized me as a strong soldier, my God did. So, another couple bad decisions. I got into cocaine when I got out. Cocaine took me for a ride. It gave me this confidence that I never thought I could have. I know that there's women in here, but like, I desired the company of women like nobody's business. And I would just, like, I was so confident. I probably had 20 girlfriends. And I just meaningless relationships, meaningless friendships, business relationships based on drugs. And I still felt like I had to protect myself. So I started carrying a gun every day. And I got really, really lucky because one time I was doing a drug deal, and for some reason I decided to leave my gun at home. And this guy, these two black guys robbed me. And I remember thinking how scared I was. And I know I'll wrap it up right from here. But I remember thinking how scared I was. And the guy had a gun to my head. And there was another guy outside the window the guy outside the window had the gun to my head. The guy inside the car had a gun to my stomach. And I remember putting my hands up and saying, "Don't shoot me." And they were, yelling like, "Punk it." I was like, "Please don't shoot me. I have a lot to live for. I owned a home improvement company. I was married, but I was still selling drugs." So that was the day that I realized I should no longer sell drugs. I got caught. Right after that, I went away for another year. So this time I went in there with God. Because as soon as you go to jail, you're like, "Oh my God, I am so sorry, Father." But on the street, I was doing my thing, I never went to church. Never told anybody about God. Every once in a while, I'd have a God moment where I'd talk to a friend or something. I probably might have said in the 6 or 7 years I was on the street, I probably said the sinner's prayer with maybe 3 people, had moments of clarity where God would put me somewhere with somebody who really needed to hear it. And for some reason, I came out of my drug-induced haze and I would tell them about God. So, being saved, knowing about God, but still being knee-deep in my addiction. So 11 months ago, I was knee-deep in my addiction. And I remember this girl, this is probably going to take 5 minutes. But anyways, so this girl OD'd in the room next to mine. My girlfriend at the time, I was a crack addict. I smoked crack. Every day I was on a corner with the sign saying "Help a Veteran." So I used the most important thing in my life to manipulate people out of their money. I remember feeling bad about that. So this girl, I heard commotion coming from the next room because my girlfriend let this drug dealer move in to our abandoned house, mind you. No running water, no heat, nothing, middle of the winter. And I heard commotion coming, and this girl OD'd. And she died while I was in the other room smoking crack with my girlfriend. And I went in there, I went and knocked on the door in the morning to see if this girl was all right, and she was laying dead on the floor. She was 26 years old and had never done heroin before, but I knew that's what killed her. So I sat there for the next, I want to say 20 hours, watching people step over her dead body to get their drugs. I remember thinking to myself, going how in the world did I get here? What am I doing? There was a time in my life where I wouldn't let a man talk bad to a woman in front of me, and I let these guys kill this girl. I remember thinking oh my God, I'm just the worst person in the world. And then my girlfriend, she would tell me when we'd run out of dope, "Why don't you just kill yourself?" And I eventually started sounding good because I had no idea how I was going to get away from crack cocaine. So she told me, "Why don't you kill yourself for the last time?" And the drug dealer, he had dropped a pack of heroin in the hallway, and I picked it up and I put it in my pocket for later. Now, mind you, I'd never done heroin. The only time I did heroin was when I tried to kill myself a year prior. I said I would never do that again. So here I'm sitting with this pack of heroin after my girlfriend told me to kill myself. She walked into the bathroom with a guy to take care of him so she can continue to get high. That's how low I had gotten. This woman I was with for over 8 years was selling her body to get drugs for herself. I put the heroin out in a line, and I did the heroin and I OD'd. Boom. So I wake up the next morning and I'm on the floor. And this is the greatest part about it because it has a happy ending, okay? So, I mean, I know that took you guys through a little roller coaster there. But anyway, so I do this. I wake up on the floor the next morning and I tell her, I say, what am I doing on the floor? I was like, that big of a POS, you kicked me onto the floor. Now, mind you, the difference between the floor and not the floor was a mattress or a mat. But how dare you kick me off the bed? You know. She told me, you put me through something you have no idea. I'll never, like, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, what? What did I do? She handed me the phone. I looked on the phone, and there was a video of me for 4.5 hours fighting for my life. She didn't call the ambulance, nothing. I literally was dead in this video. I would stop breathing for up to a minute at a time. And I remember hearing voices on this video where I could it literally sounded like I was in a den of demons. Now, whether it was actually sounded like that or God just gave me that kind of audio to let me realize that he was still there, I don't know. So that morning, she was like, are you going to go out on the corner and hustle? And I was like, yeah. So I was walking up to the corner, and I remember saying, and I know this is going to sound horrible, but I said, God, if you're still really here and you're still really with me, let me find $100. I was like, to this minute, it sounds insanely stupid. But I walked up to the corner, and within 5 minutes, a guy pulled up to me on a motorcycle, and he said, you're a veteran? And I said, yeah. And he goes, come here. He was going through his knot of money, and I was right at the entrance to Grosse Pointe. So this guy obviously had a lot of money, and he pulled out this knot of money, and I seen him going through it, 5s, 10s, 20s, and all of a sudden he comes, and I'm thinking that he's looking for $1, you know. Comes to a $100 bill, and he hands me the $100 bill. I said, whoa. Now, mind you, I didn't do the right thing with it. But God had set a chain of events in motion that day within 24 hours, 10.5 months later, guys. Here I am. So I woke up in a parking lot that morning at about 4:30 in the morning, and I literally heard God say, are you going to live or are you going to die? And I said, well, I need $2. And I can get on the bus. My addict mind was saying, you need $50 because you're a smoker, you got to smoke cigarettes, this, that. And I knew that was the enemy trying to talk me out of going to rehab. And I said, nope. So I went to the gas station, I was told I'd say. So anyways, I went to the gas station and I told a little bit of my story to a couple guys, and I said, if you guys can get me $2 to jump on the bus, I will prove to you that I'm going to rehab. And the one guy said, how are you going to do that? He handed me, I had $2.30 at the end of the conversation. I pulled out my crack pipe, I slammed it on the ground, I stepped on it. When I walked across the street, the bus almost hit me. So I jumped on the bus, and like I said, there's the end of my story, and it's a happy ending because here I am with you guys. So thank you for letting me share.